Welcome everyone. My name is Chanel McAuliffe and I'll be moderating today's Manage Your Money session. Thank you for joining us and being proactive by learning more about your personal finances. It's an important area of our lives and we have a great informative session ahead that I'm sure you'll gain much value from. I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people and pay our respects to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance of the Kaurna people living today. And we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations people. Please also note that the session is being recorded as an online resource for the USASA website. So today we are joined by finance industry experts, including myself, Chanel McAuliffe, a USASA financial counsellor, Simon Gilbert Kent, associate and state litigation leader at Morris Blackburn Lawyers, and also a director of the South Australia Financial Counselling Association. We're also joined by Mel Brown, former accountant, former financial advisor, and best-selling global author and serial entrepreneur. We encourage you to engage throughout the session using the chat function to ask questions and share your thoughts. We may not get to some of the questions throughout the session, however, we will dedicate time to this towards the end of the session. We will pick 2 winners at the end of the session for those of you who participate and engage using the chat function. We'll be giving away 2 of Melissa Brown's books. So just engage in, we want today's session to be conversational and casual, so feel free to share your thoughts and questions. Also, we have a grand prize pack to give away, so stay tuned to the end to find out more about that. So, today, I'll be presenting a session on saving and spending. So, what does money mean to you? Use the chat function now to type in the first thing that comes to mind when you think about money. Let's see some of the responses. Security, again, another one, financial security. Choice, very important. Pleasure, safety, power, financial freedom, happiness, freedom again, work, needs, stability, a lot of really great thoughts and feelings coming through. Okay, so thank you for sharing what money means to you. So I want to focus first thing in today's session about the way we think about money. So before we tackle the big topics of saving, tax, super and investing, it is important to consider what money means to us and identify what we are financially striving for. So a lot of you just now still sharing through the chat function have covered some of these values that I've listed. So survival needs, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, shelter, food, clothing, like our basic necessities in life. Security seems a really big one to everyone typing today. So having peace of mind, status, so that might not necessarily be those survival basic needs type value. It could be, acquiring possessions, assets, and portfolios. Also success. It could be for some people the way you measure money and success and how they correlate together. And also socially, creating a lifestyle for holidays, friends, events. So it's really important when we're thinking about money to consider these values first before we tackle anything else. So thank you for sharing the chat function just now, what money means to you. So next, we're moving on to a few quotes. So that's just a few reflective messages. Oh, could you just go back, please, Christy? There we go. So these are a few reflective quotes that we can think about. So the money you make is a symbol of the value you create. A budget is more than just a series of numbers on a page. It is an embodiment of our values. Financial freedom is available to those who learn about it and work for it. So a couple of key things to reflect on and think about with those quotes. And moving on next. So a spending plan. Budgets can be associated with restrictions in terms of limiting our lifestyle and guilt if we can't stick to it. It's kind of, sometimes we implement a budget kind of like a New Year's resolution. So instead, I like to refer to budgets as a spending plan, as budgets can focus on not spending money, but we need to spend money in order to provide for ourselves, family, and enjoy life. So I really like to focus around language when we're talking about money and finances, because that can be a really big thing around how we think about money. So things to consider when assessing your income and expenses to identify gaps and goals. Is it practical and realistic? So working with what you've got. Priorities, shelter and food, lifestyle choices that you make, opportunity to review. So when you're working through a spending plan, you might be looking through your bank statement and transactions. Sometimes there's things in there that we forget that we're spending money on. So it can be an opportunity to identify, do I need this expensive phone plan, or I'm spending a lot on credit? Can I review, plans that have come out since I took mine out, or different prepaid options to find something that is more relevant to my situation now. Also, as students, identifying eligible concessions that you have. So what format will work best for you? So traditionally, budgets can be done on an Excel spreadsheet. However, it's not always that practical, if we're on the run a lot, and given students are already on their computers a lot as it is, writing essays, it might not be something that you want to manage. You might not want to manage another Excel spreadsheet or be on your laptop more than you have to. So there are apps that can help with that too. And then lastly, sensibility. So considering, again, the values that we've already talked about, and our habits and behaviors play a really significant role in our spending habits, in the way we might try to budget. So just being aware of those, and not being too hard on yourself. Budgets take a lot of practice. The first time you do one, or the second time, third time, it just takes a lot of practice, a lot of time. So don't be too hard on yourself. Just keep trying to manage what you can within the limits that you're working with. So we'll have a quick look at some of the format options that I mentioned in terms of an Excel spreadsheet, for a spending plan, or an app. We shared a link for this app that is called Pocketbook, which I recommend to some of the students here that I see during my financial counselling sessions. So it just gives you a really great overview and snapshot of where you're sitting kind of day by day or week by week. It has a live real-time feed of your bank transactions. There can be, however, a little bit of a lag with that, particularly say on the weekends or pending transactions. So sometimes it might not always be real time, but if you're someone that struggles kind of keeping on top of an Excel spreadsheet, it is a good way to, have that app in your pocket. You can pull it out at any time and have a quick snapshot of where you're tracking. So you can securely link your bank account, easy to use dashboard. You can set up to have push notifications and alerts when you're close to reaching your set budget or allowance, which you can set up when you first download the app. You can also set up your goals of a savings amount that you want to reach, and it'll help you track that as well. It will send you reminders of upcoming bills. It's automated, so ease of use and time. It's a bit more efficient than an Excel spreadsheet. So then with the Excel spreadsheet, you can opt to have, if it's weekly, fortnightly, monthly. As you can see, it's quite detailed. So everything from utilities to, food, takeaway, transport, debts. So we've just got a question in the chat function. What is the app called? The app is called Pocketbook, and we shared a link to it in the lead up to the event. We will share another link for it at the end of the session or as a follow-up from the session. It's completely free. So we'll definitely make sure anyone that is inquiring about that app, we can get you a link for that. We can also get you a copy of this Excel spreadsheet that you're seeing on the screen. Now we have a template for that. This is the one I use when I'm seeing students during our sessions. Also, we've just dropped some of the links in the chat function now, so hopefully you can see that. Okay, so moving on. So we've looked at the different format options when spending money, how to manage a spending plan or budget. So, the app versus a spreadsheet, secure, snapshot, notification, reminders, automated. I think a slight issue if you're kind of putting it on autopilot mode is sometimes it can cause you to probably not be as proactive and sort of kind of set and forget. So definitely keep in mind if you want to use the app option versus kind of manually maintaining a budget spreadsheet, to just make sure that you're still across the ins and outs of your finances and your spending habits. And things don't get set, they're not set on autopilot too much. So next I want to talk about having a backup fund. So this is a really powerful quote from one of my favorite books called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, who is a financial advisor in the US. And it says, planning is important, but the most important part of every plan is to plan on the plan not going according to plan. So it's a bit of a tongue twister, but it's really important to factor that into your savings, your spending plan. So the backup fund allows you to have control over your personal finances. It can take into consideration any things that we might not think of in our day-to-day lives, like we've just experienced. So global changes such as a pandemic, changes to the economy, climate, politics, any unexpected events like changes to employment, redundancy, businesses closing, illness. A big one that I see a lot with students is mechanical issues with cars. So yeah, it's not something, a lot of students don't tend to have much extra cash laying around if your car breaks down, or you need to get that upcoming service done. So something really simple to do is set up a separate fee-free account that receives a direct debit from your wages, even if it's just $5 per week, to accumulate spare funds in case the unexpected occurs. And as we've seen probably in the last year and a half with the pandemic, the unexpected does occur, unfortunately. So being prepared for that is part of helping us have that stability, security, financial independence that all those thoughts and fears and important key issues that a lot of you have mentioned in the chat function earlier today. So this is just as important as anything else we're considering with money. Some of the things we're going to tackle later in the session is investing. So this is a really important thing to consider. Even if you just strive to just have $500 in that account, that's going to be a lot of money if one of these things occurs, like your car breaking down, changes to employment. So it will really help to create some peace of mind. So next, we'll be looking at saving and planning for saving. So first of all, we want to identify your main goals for saving. Is it a deposit for a house, which at the moment is something that is quite controversial. The market is a little bit harder to enter for younger people. Is it a new car or your first car? Is it to invest, holidays, or that emergency backup fund that we're talking about? So when we're thinking about saving, we really want to identify what is it for, what's important to us. So establish practical steps to reach this goal. What is a realistic amount? What is a fair and reasonable percentage of our wage that we can afford right now? Obviously, your wage is going to fluctuate, being, it might increase over the university breaks when you have more capacity to work more and earn more. Also, when you graduate from university and eventually go on a full-time salary. So identifying, what that percentage is that's going to work for you as your wages fluctuate. Setting a time frame, so whether that's short-term or long-term. So setting a date to achieve that goal can really help you track how you're going to reach that. Fee-free account is really important. Also an interest-bearing account. Unfortunately, interest-bearing accounts aren't that high at the moment. They don't offer you too much, some around 2% at the moment. But the really important factor is to just create and develop a habit where you can consistently keep putting away that money for your savings, for your backup fund, and create that security. And just establishing what works for you. It's not one size fits all. Even the information I'm giving you today, these are just some simple tips and insights that I can deliver during a short 15-minute session. So always do your research. Try different things. Again, it comes back to what I mentioned earlier about practice and patience as well. Just give yourself the time, the practice, the patience to just keep trying, and you'll develop healthy money habits that you can improve on. So ways to save money we're going to look at next. So starting small. Any progress is progress. So, starting with that $5, it's not a lot, but, a lot of students are kind of restricted in the income that they can earn while they're studying. So, something is better than nothing. So just start small and you will grow on that. So understanding your spending habits, why we spend money the way we do, is, do we purchase things out of necessity or just wants? Creating and tracking a spending plan, which we've touched on. Paying off debts is a really big one that's going to set you up to have a great foundation to start saving, to create a backup fund. Exit any buy now, pay later cycles that you may be stuck in or you may be dependent on. I see this a lot with students in my sessions. I've seen bank statements, pages and pages, where every single transaction is Afterpay or Zip Pay. It's a very popular tool that a lot of young people use. But it can create an unhealthy dependency. It doesn't facilitate people to build a lot of financial resiliency and depend on themselves to spend money that they have, or save up to buy things that you need. The buy now, pay later platforms, they are facilitating you to spend money that you don't have. And it can be a slippery slope. So just be really mindful of that. My position as a financial counsellor is not to tell you what to do. It's just to give you guidance, give you information so that you can make better choices. So the buy now, pay later kind of Afterpay topic, I'd really encourage you to have a look at how often you're using it, why you're using it. Is it something that you really need? That would be a really big takeaway for me today, is if you could kind of evaluate that. Okay, so we've just got in the chat function, do you mean borrow money from bank, unhealthy financials? So I'm not quite sure what you mean by that question, perhaps. So buy now, pay later, they promote their platform that it's not a credit card, but essentially it is kind of a line of credit. So you are spending money that you don't have. That can kind of, be a slippery slope to start falling into a debt trap, or lead you to borrow money from a bank through loans or credit cards. So it can be an unhealthy habit, if that's the question you're asking. So yeah, I think it's just something to just have control over, and just know why you're using it and do you really need to use it. So automate your savings, a direct debit, same with the backup fund. Micro investing. So micro investing, there are a few different apps for this around at the moment. So it can facilitate purchase rounding. So when if you're purchasing a coffee for $4.50, and there's apps that can round it up to $5 and take that extra 50 cents and save it for you, or invest it. And again, it comes back to just starting small. There's lots of different options to get started in saving money. So calculate the value of your purchases in hours of work. So this can be a really interesting way to really recognize if a purchase is important to you by valuing it in the hours that you work. So we've just got in the chat function now, how do you feel about apps like Spaceship? You just need to do your research and due diligence. There are a lot of apps popping up now, like Raise, some platforms for crypto. Just do your research, your due diligence. If you are going to use them, ensure that you're using funds that aren't going to damage your financial future. There are apps where you can start off with $5. So again, I won't have input on my opinion of those investing apps. It's a developing space. The fintech space right now, there's a lot popping up. So just do your research. Only spend money that you feel comfortable spending or investing. Have a low risk approach. Okay. So coming back to ways to save, meal prep. So, that's a really easy one to do. If you're studying at home as well, more things have moved online, spending more time at home, just taking a little bit more time to prep and spend less money on takeaway. But also on this note, keep in mind that I don't want to encourage people to restrict their lifestyles if eating out helps them be social and contributes to their well-being. So, make sure you're factoring all of those things in. So concessions, reducing mobile phone plans, which I touched on earlier, review any subscriptions. Sometimes we forget about all the ones that we have: Netflix, Stan, Binge, HeyU. So, every now and then, go through your bank statements if you have time, review your transactions. There might be things in there that you're paying for that you don't use anymore. So cancel those subscriptions or team up with your housemates to chip in all on the one Netflix account. Check point of sale amounts and receipts. So sometimes when we're in a store, at a restaurant, we go up to pay, they just pass us their EFTPOS machine, we tap, collect our goods, and off we go. Sometimes we're not even looking on the amount on the EFTPOS machine. So just always keep in mind to, human error occurs. Sometimes people in shops or restaurants will sometimes hit the wrong number. So make sure you're paying the right amount, and check your receipt as well that you've paid the correct amount for your goods or service. Pay bills on time. Easy way to not incur any late fees. Consolidate your super. So when we're studying, we have a few different casual jobs. I see this all the time, and you're accumulating fees in all of those different super funds, and it can quickly kind of eat away at those funds. So if you can, if you have a MyGov account, jump in there in the tax and super section and put all of your super into one account. Do some research on what the best funds are, who offers the best fees, who offers the best returns. Super is something that I think we probably don't spend too much attention on or consider at a young age while we're studying, but it's a really powerful tool to set you up for your future. And if it is something that you can look into early, you can really utilize this tool to create a really great future for yourself. And, topping it up through super salary sacrifice. Perhaps once you've graduated, you're earning a salary to be in the position to do so. It's something to consider early on in your career and early on in your financial journey. And a really big topic is know your employment award rate. Check your pay slip and or your contract. Or if you're concerned about this, book an appointment with me. I have come across a few students who are being underpaid. So yeah, please check this, book an appointment with me, and we can review this together. So I know there's a lot of points there to consider. Again, if you want some clarification on any of these, keep using the chat function. I'll try to get to all of them towards the end of the session, or we have a breakout networking on Discord at the end of the session. Or also, if you want to see me, look through USASA and we can talk more. So I'll open it up just quickly now for any questions or comments. You can book an appointment. Yes, so there's some information in the chat function now on how you can book an appointment to see me. It's completely confidential, free. Again, it's to empower you, to give you information on personal finances, direction, guidance, support, and some actionable tools that you can take away and implement. And you can always check in back with me. It's not just a one-stop shop. You can book follow-up appointments. Okay, so I'll just have a quick look in this chat. So we've got some questions about super. We've got Simon coming up, who's going to cover super shortly. How do we get the PowerPoint and the app? Yeah, we'll share those links again. All right, so moving on. Okay, someone just quickly, hi Chanel, when it comes to taking a start, sometimes what happens is I compare myself to others. So yeah, that is something really common that we do. And that can be difficult at the moment with social media. There's a lot of financial content on social media at the moment. Don't be too hard on yourself. Again, as I mentioned, it takes practice, it takes patience. We don't all get it right the first time. So please, just try whatever works for you. It's not one size fits all. And, ask questions in your community, with your friends, come and use services like financial counseling where we can support you. Yeah, I hope that helps. So next up, we have Simon Gilbert-Kent, who is a lawyer from Maurice Blackburn, and he's going to be covering super and taxes. So I'll hand it over to him now. Thanks, Simon.
Thanks so much, Chanel. That was really awesome. Even at my tender young age of 32, I'm still learning some of the tricks of the trade in how to manage my financial world. Which has significantly changed from when I was a hustling young uni student, fighting my way through every day. And
I bet.
I'm sure there are many students on this call and that can resonate with the challenges of being able to fund their living throughout university.
Definitely.
So I thought I'd just sort of start off, I guess, by giving a bit of a background about my journey, I guess, through university and how I got to where I am today. Because I know it's quite a daunting prospect when you're sort of heading towards the end of your university career and you're deciding where your life's going ahead and what's the future going to look like for you, and you're in an amazing position right now as university students to really embrace life and enjoy this period of your life and have fun and spend money when there's really not too much to worry about in terms of the damage that it can cause on you. It's a really amazing time in your life that you really can make some great friends and experience life in a really free will, fun way. So if anything, I really encourage everyone to really harness this time of your life, because it's some of the best years of your life, and you don't have that freedom and flexibility as much when you start entering into career and adult world life. I definitely can say with my hand on my heart that university was probably my favorite period of my life so far. So when I sort of came out of university and law school and was looking at where I wanted to head, I did a lot of volunteer work. I worked in a lot of pro bono and social justice areas because I always had a strong passion for helping those who are less fortunate than others and those that are in vulnerable positions. And I spent some time overseas. I did a lot of traveling around in Europe and spent a year and a half in Asia working for not-for-profit legal aid organisations and really getting down to the grassroots of what the law is all about and how does the law affect everyday life and how it affects different people in different circumstances. And that really, for me, set the tone for what I wanted to do with my career. So again, travel is such an amazing thing. You meet some amazing people. It opens your eyes up to different cultures and different ways of living, and makes you appreciate and value different things in life that you wouldn't ordinarily do in your day-to-day lives at home. So I always wanted to spend a lot of my money at university that I made on travel and meeting new people and experiencing new things. I wasn't a very good saver. I'll be the first to admit that. I would spend all of my money on having fun and traveling and exploring life. And to the day, I don't regret that. I really loved that period of time when I could do that so freely and really enjoy life at that particular point in time. But then when I came back from overseas, I got a graduate job at Maurice Blackburn and started my legal career properly. And somehow, as many of you will come to realise, you land in an area of your career that you're not necessarily sure that's what you want to do. But I definitely knew it was the firm that I wanted to work for, and my personal values aligned with the firm's. And that led me to working in the financial services sector, which is quite ironic. At university, I was doing humanitarian subjects outside of my law and history and studying French, and really didn't have any interest in the economy of the world. But ironically enough, here I am, and it's a fascinating and it's an incredibly widespread, diverse area with lots of opportunities for various career paths to be taken. So I spent first time of my legal career in their Melbourne office before gallivanting up to Sydney and working on some class actions up there against the Commonwealth Bank and Macquarie banks, helping victims of negligent financial advice. And that's when I got my first real taste of how vulnerable people can be when it comes to money, how difficult money can be to understand, and the principles behind money and the value of money, and really see the devastating consequences of some decisions being made for people in relation to their money. And that was a real eye-opener for me, that I realised that this is such a powerful area of law and can certainly change people's lives for the better. If we can call out some of this bad conduct that was occurring over the years in relation to financial advisors and some of the larger corporations and institutions that provide financial services. So I got a real insight into what's happening behind the scenes in those areas. That then led me to move down to the beautiful city of Adelaide and commence the practice down here. And I've been here for 3 years since. I've met some incredible people. It's a wonderful city, Adelaide. You certainly can't compare it to Melbourne and Sydney. It's got its own unique and charm, but it's a really wholesome place, and I feel very welcomed, and I feel like I belong as part of the community here, which is great. So predominantly what I do here in South Australia is I help people who have stopped work because of an injury or an illness. That doesn't have to be work related. It can be anything. It can be somebody who's fallen off a tram, someone who hurt themselves playing footy on the weekend. There's no proof of why they've become ill or unwell. It's just that they have not everybody, but most people in Australia have insurance within their superannuation. And the benefit of having insurance and superannuation is that it helps people who are in those circumstances get a wage or an income that they can rely on monthly in circumstances where they haven't got another source of income to rely on because they're not working. And so there are lots and lots of people here in South Australia in particular who fall into that category, who haven't suffered an injury at work and therefore haven't made a work cover claim, or haven't stopped work because of a car accident and then going through the compulsory third-party insurance scheme that needs some sort of income to survive on. And so superannuation insurance provides this incredible ability for people to continue to fund their lives and provide for their families and give financial stability to themselves through, like I said, an income stream, which is what's called income protection. And in some circumstances where people are really unwell and looking like they're not going to return to work in any way, what they call a lump sum total permanent disability benefit. And I'll talk about those a bit more later on. But I guess going back to the firm more broadly, the next slide does give a bit of background as to where we are. So Maurice Blackburn is it's the largest social justice law firm in Australia, and we provide services to consumers only. So we never act on behalf of businesses or corporations. We only ever act on behalf of consumers, like people like you and I. We have offices all over the country. We have our main offices located in the bigger states on the eastern seaboard, but we are growing our business and our reputation across the country nationally, including looking at opening a second office in the regional areas of South Australia in the coming months. We practice, like I said, predominantly in consumer law. So we help people who have suffered problems in relation to their employment, workers' compensation, so injuries or issues at work, issues in relation to road accidents, suffered injuries as a result of a car accident. We have the largest class actions law practice in the country. So that's where we get groups of people who have suffered the same wrong. It can be in relation to an environmental issue. It could be in relation to a manufacturing issue. It could be in relation to a financial issue, where there's been a whole group of people affected by it in different levels. Perhaps the most notable one was the Black Saturday bushfire class action, in which we helped tens of thousands of survivors of those bushfires get compensation for the damage caused to their homes and their families as a result of some negligent conduct by a particular electrical company with some wiring. So that's a really interesting area of law, and that's a really fun practice that we operate in. We also do dust disease, medical negligence, and of course, my area that I specialise in being superannuation insurance and financial services disputes. So super, as Chanel touched on before, it's something that we don't really think about when we're at university. It's a bit of a weird concept. We think of it as being a bit of a thing that we tap into when we retire, and it's a pool of money that we then draw down on to survive off, unless we're living off the age pension. But it is an enormous asset that we have in our lives, particularly as you grow older and as you develop through your careers. It becomes really, really important. And the reason it's so important is for two things. One is that it takes the strain away from the government provided age pension upon retirement, which can be then used to fund other areas of our lives that our taxpayer money goes towards, such as the health sector or the education sector. So too much reliance upon the age pension, for example, at retirement does place a strain on other areas of the public sector or services that we need to invest in. It's a great mechanism to fund your own retirement, and you can certainly adopt different investment strategies within your superannuation portfolio as you progress through your adulthood life. It's again not just a mechanism for forced savings. It's a financial security, and probably one of the largest ones that you will grow to appreciate as you head into your later stages of your adult life. The second biggest issue with superannuation was, as I mentioned before, was insurance within superannuation, which essentially since 2013, there's been compulsory insurance within superannuation for what's called total permanent disability and death cover. So as I said before, for individuals who have suffered from an injury or an illness that has rendered them totally incapable of returning to work in a job that they're qualified to do, or any job that they're suitably qualified to do, not just the previous job that they were doing prior to getting sick or injured, they're entitled to make a claim for their insurance within superannuation. And those benefits can be huge. They can range from tens of thousands of dollars right up to the millions, and can provide a huge financial relief to families and individuals who have unfortunately suffered from some sort of injury or illness, not to their own fault, and don't look like they're going to be able to get back into the workforce and produce an income for themselves and their families. So there's around 12 million Aussies that have insurance through super, so nearly half the population. But funnily enough, only 25% of those actually know that they have this insurance or even know what this insurance does. 70% of those have what they call life insurance policies through super funds, namely industry funds. What industry funds are predominantly superannuation funds that service a particular sector. So it might be the hospitality sector, which is Host Plus. It might be the retail sector, which is Rest. For example, I work in the legal sector, so I'm naturally invested my super with legal super. And of course, they target their investment strategies and their insurance is tailored towards those particular sectors. CBUS is the other big one as well, and that helps the construction industry. So the insurance attached to those super funds have relevant insurance policies that reflect their member base. In terms of the industry funds themselves, which I'm sure Mel will tap into, and she has a lot of knowledge in this area as well, they generally produce the least expensive fees, and they generally invest in more conservative investment strategies that look after their members and are less risky. But of course, you can chop and change your underlying investment portfolio within your superannuation account, depending on where you're at in your life, or if you have a particular investment choice that you want to invest in, such as ethical investment funds, which are becoming really popular now. You know, those super funds that invest in environmental projects for renewable energy. It's a huge vehicle for investment strategy, and one that you can really set yourself up for life on if you play your cards right. Unpaid superannuation is a massive problem. Generally, if you're over the age of 18 years old and you're earning more than $450 before tax in a calendar month, then you should be paid superannuation, which at the moment is at 10%. The issue that we have a lot of the time is when people don't get paid superannuation is not only obviously losing valuable retirement money for their future, but they also may lose the opportunity to have insurance, as I said before, within their superannuation. And that could become critical for somebody, again, who suffers from an injury or illness and has to stop work. If they haven't been paid their super properly, they may not have that valuable insurance that they can claim on, which, you know, it may only provide an income for 3 or 4 months, but I certainly know that if I didn't have any income for 3 or 4 months, I don't know what I'd do. And not many people have that backup money, as Chanel was talking about, to be able to tap into during times of crisis or an emergency. So that's probably one of the biggest risks that we see. And I certainly deal with a lot of clients in my practice who have come to us, who have stopped work because of an injury or an illness. We try to find out whether or not they've got any superannuation. Turns out that they have, but their employer hasn't paid contributions for 6, 12, 18 months. And so they've lost their insurance and they have no options in terms of getting some form of income other than to claim through government support such as JobKeeper and JobSeeker, which, as we know, doesn't always provide enough money for people, particularly those who've got mortgages or they've got young children or families and other expenses in their lives. Superannuation insurance is really great in that regard because it does provide a significantly large amount of money, particularly for income protection. It can cover you for up to 85% of your income on a monthly basis. Alrighty. So this slide here again, just reiterating the importance of superannuation insurance in particular, and we've seen a huge spike in people making claims for their superannuation insurance in the last essentially nearly 15 years now, since the compulsory insurance requirements were put in place for superannuation funds. And I don't see that slowing down anytime soon. The only thing that I see changing is, of course, the threshold requirements to be met in order to receive that insurance money. It can be quite complex and it can be quite difficult, and it can be like a long, drawn-out process. Tax is always a fun topic. I remember studying that at school and trying to work out which legislation belonged to which, because there's two, and if it's not in one, then it's in the other, and they're about 500 pages long. But look, tax is the fundamental way in which our government provides public services. And without it, the building that I'm sitting on, the roads that I drive on, the parks that I play on wouldn't be in existence. So it is the number one pillar for the provision of financial services to our public sector. It's really important, obviously, that we pay tax, as I said. And it's a tricky system in terms of our income tax processes. Income tax in Australia is tiered, as many of you would understand. But if generally earning under 18,200, I believe it is, then there's no tax payable on your income, and then it goes up incrementally from there. And depending on which bracket you fall into, depends on how much tax you pay. Obviously, the higher your income, the more tax you pay. And it gets a bit messy and complicated, and there are ways in which you can reduce your taxable income, as Chanel mentioned before, with salary sacrificing, which brings down your taxable income, which means that you pay less tax. And it gets even more complicated when you start incorporating income from other means, such as rental, such as other business projects that you have, or when you have multiple jobs as well. You can find yourself paying a lot more tax than those who've just got the one job. So it's a very complicated system, and it takes a lot of time and energy to thoroughly understand its principles. But it is a very important factor for our economy to survive. HECS help. I was happy enough to recently just pay mine off, actually. So I'm now cleared of my wonderful double degree debt. But it's essentially in two components. It's both a loan and a student discount, and it's essentially funds your tertiary education, or an approved higher education provider, and it's only repayable once you earn a certain amount of money, which I believe is $46,620, before you're then required to repay that help or HECS debt. Again, the more you earn, the greater amount you have to pay back of that loan, which is reasonable and it's fair. I think it gets up to around 7.5% when you start earning over $100,000 a year, but between sort of 46,000 and 60,000, it hovers between 1 and 3%. Ordinarily, once you start earning over that threshold, your employer will take out money and will pay that portion that's required on your behalf. So for those who earn under that $46,000, when you lodge your tax return, the government, the ATO, will make an assessment of your income. If you have earned over the 46,000 mark, there will be a repayment required. But ordinarily, those who have lodged a tax return know whether or not they've earned over the relevant amount required before they have to start repaying back their HECS. I thought I'd throw this quote in here from a very funny man, Jim Carrey. I hope everybody could get rich and famous and will have everything they ever dreamed of, so they will know that it's not the answer. And I think this is sort of adding to what I discussed earlier when I started this presentation. Was, money isn't everything in life. It is obviously, there were some great responses to Chanel's point that she raised about what does money mean to you, and different answers about stability and happiness and lifestyle and all that. But at the end of the day, it is just another part of life, and it's not the be all end all, and it doesn't control your life, and it's not the only thing that exists in your life. And it's really important to still appreciate family, friends, the ability to touch, smell, taste wonderful things, and not get caught up in this modern world that is, as we know, it is significantly driven by wealth and money, and social media has encapsulated this obsession with being rich and famous. And I think it's really important that you do stop and smell the roses, and you do sit down and have face-to-face conversations with people about real issues and not always about money. It's really easy to get caught up in seeing what friends are doing, and they've bought flashy cars, or they're going on fancy holidays, or they've bought fancy clothes. But at the end of the day, the most important relationship that you can ever have is with yourself, and being true to who you are. And and money will come and you'll work it out and you'll understand, and it'll make sense over time, and you'll make mistakes and you'll learn from those. But it's important that you just don't focus your whole life on it, because there's so much more to life, and it's a wonderful experience.
Thank you so much, Simon. That was such a wonderful session, and yeah, it's really important for us to emphasize the meaningful things in life when we're talking about money, because there's so much more to life than just money. So I've just dropped in the chat box a really great question we had in response to your session, Simon. Jade was wanting to know information about the super guarantee. The government superannuation guarantee will increase from 9.5% to 12% in 0.5 increments between July 21 to July 2025. So something to look forward to.
Absolutely. That's right. Yeah. I mean, that could change again if we have a change in government at next year's federal election. So it's a bit of a watch this space. And superannuation is a very hot topic at the moment for our federal politicians. And there are some sides of politics that believe that superannuation should be scrapped entirely, and that people should fund their own retirement savings. And as we know, there's significant risks associated with that, which could be devastating to many individuals.
Definitely. We've got Yan Hai in the chat function saying, what does that mean? I think that might be in relation to the super guarantee. So the increase in percentages that we're referring to means more money that your employer is obligated to pay to your super fund. So it is a benefit and an advantage to all Australians. Or anyone earning super in Australia.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So before we move on to wrap up Simon's session, a little fun fact about Simon. He's I'm putting him in the hot seat now on the spot.
Oh dear.
So Simon has a bit of a knack for doing voice impersonations and accents, and particularly doing Sesame Street character voices. So I'm going to put him on the spot.
That's my real job. I'm not actually a lawyer. I'm a permanent impersonator.
Don't give up your day job, Simon.
No,
but
thank you.
Quickly, let's hear a Sesame Street character.
All right. I had a warm up before, so I'm ready to go. So this is Ernie and Bert. Ernie, hey Bert, have you seen my rubber ducky? Ernie, I don't know. I think it's under the couch, Ernie. But I'll have a look for you. Okay, Bert. Bert, do you know what we're having for dinner tonight? No, Ernie. I think maybe we're having some bacon and eggs and some muffins. Okay, Bert, that sounds delicious.
Thanks, Simon. That was so great. You did that really well. So I hope that breaks up our session a little bit while we're talking about some serious topics. So now I want to introduce Mel Brown, who is, as I mentioned, former accountant, former financial advisor, best-selling global author with some fantastic books that we're giving away in this session. And she also has had businesses and sold them, is a serial entrepreneur. And today she's going to be delivering a session for all of us on investing. So thank you so much for joining us, Mel, and I'll hand it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks for having me. I'm a little bit jealous of you all down in South Australia at the moment, given that I'm in New South Wales and very much in lockdown. So please enjoy. We're looking forward to escaping very soon.
Well, hang in there.
So I'm talking about investing today. And I want to say that I love what Chanel said about Afterpay. I believe that Afterpay is the lubricant of spending. So digitized spending already causes us to overspend because the insular region in our brain doesn't light up. And then Afterpay essentially just adds lubricant to that, where it instead of your brain perceiving that you've spent $100, it simply registers the payment. And it's called the framing effect. And that way you just simply think that you're spending $25 and you have no problem at all increasing that to $29 when you never would have spent $116. So something to be super aware of. Okay, let's get into it. So I wanted to ask a question, and we might put onto the next slide. I feel like I need to ding or something, or do I have control? Yeah, cool. So I wanted to ask a question. When it comes to investing, what's the story that you tell yourself? Because we all carry around money stories. We all carry around myths and messages when it comes to money. For some people, they're fairy tales. For some people, they're horror stories. For some people, they've grown up with the story that investing's scary, or maybe investing property is fine, but investing in shares is just so frightening and full of risk. Yeah, so as Chanel said, it's hard. Emily said that it's risky. And what I want to do is I want to just demystify that a little bit for you today and have you realize that investing is simply a skill. In the same way that learning a new language or riding a bike, or, if you're a cricket nerd, learning about players and cricket stats. It's like me, I could walk down High Street and I could walk past all the different shoe stores and I could tell you which brands were ripping off which high-end fashion shoes. So it's no surprise that my Insta handle is more money for shoes. So, and I can do that because I enjoy it. I take an interest in it. So when it comes to investing and money, it's really no different. It's actually realizing that this is a skill that you just want to be interested in order to increase your knowledge. And maybe how you feel about investing belongs in one of these three boxes. But what I want to do is just move it back to being a tool again that will get you back to that life that you want to design. So if we head to the next. So what I want to acknowledge before we talk about investing is that having cash is actually important. And sometimes having cash is enough. And I'm often asked how much cash is enough. How much cash should we hold? Should Chanel mention $500? Kylie said $1 million. I feel like, Kylie, you would be sitting there stroking a white cat as you said that. But if we move to the next slide, the general rule when it comes to how much cash we want to hold and not invest is a 3 months worth of fixed expenses or savings that you're holding for a short-term goal. So the 3 months fixed expenses is so that if that car repair is necessary, if you lose your job, if life happens, you've got the money there and you can just grab it and go. And I'm a real fan of setting up something called a buffer account. Now, you can call that whatever you like, but I would call it the thing that makes the most sense to you. So I'm a fan of a buffer account, sweet Jesus, oh God, whatever means that you're not going to touch it. I've had people call it, Mel, do not touch this account under any circumstance. Insert your name for that. So it just needs to be what makes sense for you. And the idea is that you're never going to touch that money. Now, the other reason that you don't want to touch your cash is if you're saving for a short-term goal. So if you're saving for a holiday, if you're saving for some uni fees, if you're saving for a car, if you're saving for a house, you don't want to risk that short-term savings by investing them. And that's because investing in shares, investing in crypto, investing in property, investing in a business is usually a longer term time frame. And by a longer term, I mean 5-7 years plus. So if I've got something that I'm saving for in the short term, I don't want to risk that by putting that into an investment. So these are two reasons why we do want to hold some cash. But I'm going to show you the next slide, which is why we don't want to hold too much in cash. And I know some people are scared about investing and keeping cash in the bank feels more comfortable, but this is why we don't want to do it. So if I had $20,000 in savings today and I was investing that in my bank account, getting, if I'm lucky, 1.5% interest, in 20 years' time, I'm going to have 27 grand. And I might think, hey, that's all right. that's not bad. I'm earning some interest. But the thing is, in 20 years' time, thanks to inflation, that 20,000, I would need $30,000 simply to have the equivalent of $20,000 today. And that's because the inflation rate goes up by an average of 2.11% each year. So it's going faster than the interest rate, than the cash that you can receive in the bank. And that's why you may think it's far safer to keep all my cash in the bank or under the mattress, when the truth is that's a really risky strategy. So what we want to do is, yes, have some cash in the bank. We want to have cash for our current day expenses. We want to have cash for a buffer. We also want to have cash if we're saving for a short-term goal. But we don't want to save cash and invest cash to the detriment of all else. So what do we want to do with it instead? That's what the next slide's all about. So the problem that we have, in these next two slides show you why a lot of people feel uncomfortable when it comes to investing, and why there's a lot of fear when it comes to investing. So what I've done over the next two slides is I've grabbed 6 months worth of headline in it from Australian newspapers only. So these are from Australian newspapers about property. And if you read them, 3 of them are about how house prices are going to fall. Victoria, New South Wales property prices are to fall the most. House prices are to fall at least 10%, falling house prices in Sydney and Melbourne. And yet the other half of them are the house price boom is just getting started. So there's mixed messages there just in housing. Or in this slide, this is all about the stock market. And this again is simply from 6 months worth of articles. So is a stock market crash coming? Here's what the data suggests. The stock market is falling. Financial markets are betting big the COVID vaccine rollout will be a success. Stocks are 100% up since the last dramatic sell-off. So if you were reading financial papers, or even just the general newspapers for the last 6 months, and you're thinking, I'm confused as to what I should do and whether I should invest, can I just say, so are the experts? As you can see from these mixed messages that we're receiving. So what can you do? What should you be doing instead? So the other thing that I want to point out is that we're not just receiving mixed messages from experts, we're also receiving mixed messages from the media at large and how they talk to men and women. So if you're a woman here listening today, 67% of messages define you as an excessive spender. More than 90% of articles, messages to women are that we should cut back. So messages to us are all about, you need to be frugal, you need to cut back, and you need to stop spending. If you're a guy, 70% of articles directed to you says that money makes you more of a man, and it uses fear as a technique against men. So I want to also acknowledge that we as men and women are receiving different money messages. The blokes are receiving messages that saying you need more of it. So that chances are that's why you're acting and behaving maybe a bit riskier with your investing. Whereas to women, they're saying you actually just need to cut back. You just need to stop spending and be frugal. So there was a Warwick Business School research study. And I hate pitting gender against one another, but I want to show you this because this is, I know that there are women here today believing that they are not good, would not make good investors. So Warwick Business School article is a longitudinal study of male and females. And what they showed is that both the men and women beat the FTSE index. And that just simply means beat how the market performed. But the women outperformed the men. And the reason I tell you that story and that research article is because in a US study, 93% of people surveyed in a recent study said that they believed that women were worse investors than men. And yet that Warwick Business School study disproved it. So whether it is articles about the property market, articles about share markets, or simply articles about money, is it any wonder that we're confused and we're carrying these mixed money stories and messages when it comes to investing? And I always want to start with that when it comes to talking about money, because I believe so many of us are carrying these money messages or myths. And it's really important to understand who we are financially and to make sure we talk back to some of those myths and messages so that when we go to invest, we're realizing that we're kind of putting some of that baggage down before we do. So if we go to that next slide and actually talk about some investing at the moment. So if you're thinking about the stock market, and if you grew up with parents that said, oh, you know, I invested in Telstra back in the day and it wasn't a good idea, so I don't think you should invest. Or if you're thinking that investing in shares is risky because you happened to look at your superannuation last year and noticed it fall off the cliff, I wanted to show you a graph that shows to you why people think shares are a riskier investing, but show you that over time, it absolutely comes back. So if I was to look at some of the big crashes in the share market, so the 1929 crash where the share market fell 46% in a day, if you'd invested your money that day, you might be panicking. However, and if you pulled it out, you definitely would have lost half your cash. But if you left it there, within 10 years, you would have made it all back and then some. If we go to more recently, if we go to the September 11 attacks, again, 22% wiped off in a day. If we go to the GFC in the 1990s, 55% wiped off within a month. If you'd pulled your money out at that point, definitely you would have made a loss. But if you chose to keep investing, and if you chose to even decide that you saw the market as being on sale at that point and leaned into investing, you actually would have seen bigger and bigger returns. So yes, this is why people get scared about the share market, particularly because of the volatility. It's so easy for us to buy and sell shares. And yet when it comes to property, you can't do that, which is why the volatility doesn't exist in the property market. Yet over the long term, as you can see, the share market does continue to rise and those short-term losses are smoothed out. And certainly if I put a similar graph up there with property, you'd have less of the highs and lows, but certainly the two perform very similarly. Now, if we go to the next slide, this is the reason why we want to consider investing. This is the reason why investing can be a really smart idea. So if I decided to save $200 a week over 20 years at 1.5% interest, I would have $55,000. You know, that's not a small amount. And my suggestion to you today, if you're sitting here listening going, right, I know I need to do something, but I've got such a small amount that I could invest. For you, it might be $20 and not $200. My message to you is to start now and to start early and to start often. If you're a young person, your gift is the gift of time and the gift of compound interest over time. So start now. But that would give you $55,000. If I invested that at a 7% return, exactly the same amount of money, I would have almost double. I would have $104,000. And that is the difference between investing. So someone's just asked, do I mean in shares? No, I mean in any type of investment. And a lot of people presume shares. They think shares and property are the only type of investment. But the three main type of investing is shares, property, and business. So you might invest in shares and you can do that in many different ways. You can invest in micro investing apps, which I know Chanel talked about some of them. And there are so many different apps where you could spend $5 a week. You can spend nothing, as in you don't have to regularly contribute. You can just tell it to round up. Or you can invest in shares for $20 or $500. Examples of those are Pearl, Sharesies, Spaceship, which lets you invest in overseas funds, or Sharesies. So there are a few examples. Or you might decide to invest using a share platform in direct shares or an exchange traded fund or a managed fund. So there's many, many different ways to invest in shares, and that's a whole much bigger conversation. Or you could invest in property, and you can do that direct, where you can buy a property, you can invest in a home, or you can invest in something called a listed property trust, where instead of me needing a big loan and thousands of dollars, I can buy a property trust on the stock exchange where I can own part of essentially commercial or office property. Or a business might be you starting a business. Certainly that's been one of the ways that I have funded my wealth, is by starting a business. Or you might decide to invest in someone else's business. So there are 3 different examples of ways that you can invest. But the thing that I want you to encourage to think about, and I'm going to show you this with the next slide, is to think about investing in terms of developing multiple streams of income. At the end of the day, what you don't want to do is just go all in on the one thing. So if someone was to ask me, Mel, should I do crypto? The answer is it depends. But you wouldn't just want to do that. If you ask, should I invest in shares? The answer is it depends, but you wouldn't just want to do that. The thing that I want you to start to think about is developing 7 streams of income. And I discovered many years ago that most millionaires have 7 streams of income. So examples might be your employment, rental property income, capital gains, and that just means I'm buying something and then selling it at a higher price. Interest, so interest income on a bank account, for example, a business income, dividends, so that's from shares that I've invested in, and royalties. So for example, you might have created something or written a book or written some music or done some sort of artistic endeavor. So some of these are going to be riskier than others, but what we want to do is create multiple streams of income, because then the question around how much do I need almost becomes irrelevant. And certainly if we looked at business, it's easier and cheaper than ever before to start a business. It really just is an idea and then to start. So that can be a beautiful way to start investing. In my 40s, I have the opportunity to choose to work or not after starting from less than nothing at age 33. And I have 9 streams of income. So I have, I continue to have an employment income because I started a preschool. With a good friend. I have rental properties, both commercial and rental. I have capital gains. I have interest. I have 3 businesses. I have dividend incomes from shares, and I have royalties from 4 big books I've written. So it's deciding from you. What I would suggest is decide which one feels as something like you could be interested in, and then start doing your research. So if it was shares, the ASX has something called a share game. It's completely free to start and play. So you might join the next round and start to learn about shares. You might decide it's business. So in that case, you might decide to listen to business podcasts. You might start to read books about business and start to learn about how to run a great business so that you could start doing that yourself. If it was property, again, it would be listening to podcasts. It would be starting to learn and research so that you could start. But at the end of the day, when it comes to investing, it's figuring out what feels most comfortable for you, understanding those messages that might be preventing you from starting early, but with a small amount, if that's what makes you feel comfortable, and then considering it in terms of streams of income rather than a large wad of cash that you need in order to start, because that's definitely a fallacy when it comes to investing. So if we so I know that's kind of a broad brushstroke when it comes to investing. If there's any questions, I'm super happy to answer any that we've got.
Thank you so much, Mel. We do have quite a few questions in the chat box. Are you able to see?
Absolutely.
Just have a quick scroll.
So someone's asked, what if the company is in a loss? So if by that you mean, Ganti, if you've invested a share in shares and the company's dropped in value, that graph that I showed you shows it in a lot of the cases if you continue to hold for the long term, then it's only if you sell that you lose in many cases. Investment gives bigger returns, but saving is a lesser risk. Yes and no. As I showed you from that, saving is a risk if that's all you're doing. If all you're doing is saving cash in the bank, that is a risk because you're going to go backwards. So investing, choosing how much cash you want and then starting to invest is actually really important. Would you suggest investing early in new things such as NFTs? Look, I love all these new types of investing that you can have. So an NFT is basically investing in digital art. So you might, for things like NFTs and cryptos, it might be choosing to invest an amount that you're happy to lose because it's an unknown type of, it's really a very new type of investment. So you might decide, you know what, if I invested $200 and I lost that completely, I'm going to feel okay with that. But if I was to invest 1,000, I'm going to be pretty mad. So if those sort of new types of investment, maybe it's about investing an amount that you're comfortable losing. I feel like we need to do a lot of research before investing in something. Being a student, time is limited. How do we get started without it consuming a lot of time? So that's where things like, if you love the idea of share investing, but you don't want to research individual shares, things like exchange traded funds or ETFs were created for that reason. So an ETF is a passive investment where it's an example of an ETF is one where it invests in the top 200 shares in the Australian share market. It's chosen those shares for you. There's very little risk because if the top 200 shares were to go bust, then we're all going bust. Every quarter, it rebalances those shares for you. And really your only research is which is to going on to compare the market or Finder or a comparison site and choosing who you're going to invest with. So Vanguard, Perpetual, or one of the other large ETF places. Investing seems like gambling to me while savings feel comfy. I think anything you don't understand or feel comfortable with feels like gambling. And certainly if I was to rely on a suggestion by my gardener or my next door neighbor or the person I'm sitting next to in uni and took all my money and invested it based on their say-so, absolutely, that's gambling. So it's about looking at your comfort level, looking at how much time you have and what your inclination is to researching and then starting. But as I said, a lot of these, you can start super small. Sharesies, which is a company, or Pearl, so Pearl is a new offering where it's only ETFs that you can invest in, but you can invest in as little as $20. So there's so many new options that are coming out where they do all the hard work for you and you can invest with really slow amounts. Yeah, I think that was most of the questions. And the podcast or social media. So my Insta handle is More Money for Shoes, where I give a lot of tips and tricks about investing and saving. And my podcast is Uncensored Money, where we talk about investing, saving, money stories, the gamut.
Yeah, I've listened to your podcast, Mel. It's very compelling, and I kind of love the conversational, casual nature of it, with your business partner that you co-host with. So yeah, I'd encourage everyone to jump on to Apple Podcasts. Are you on Spotify as well, Mel? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very loose and conversational, but I think lots of money topics and conversations are best done conversationally. So
yeah, it's very accessible and relatable. There's it doesn't have that financial jargon that can be a bit off-putting and confusing. So I highly recommend. One of the comments I've seen in here from Anya, it says, every now and then I wonder if I should just continue living a normal life or be the next 18-year-old millionaire. We'll probably choose to live a normal life and make some small investments in the future. So I wanted to touch on this comment because there is no get rich quick scheme. And I think there's a lot of misinformation or headlines or clickbait, I think targeted at young people, and a lot of young financial content creators online sharing their net worths. They might be only sort of 23 and they're saying, my net worth is 400,000. But there's a lot more behind the scenes that we don't know about. Some of this content is not always super transparent. For example, an influencer that I've been keeping an eye on that shares her net worth. She accumulated her net worth with her boyfriend. So she hasn't done it alone. So there's always more to the story than just the Instagram post or the Insta story. So I know someone mentioned earlier about comparing themselves. So just be really mindful when you're consuming financial content online. It's a very saturated market right now, and it will probably continue to be because it is also an unregulated space, and a lot of people creating financial content online right now are also unlicensed, and they're not licensed financial counselors like Mel was or is, and it can be illegal to give unlicensed financial content. So yeah, very important that when you're seeking out this information, do it from reliable sources. I noticed Daniel put in the chat box what are reliable safe sources to find out financial information. He mentioned Money Smart. So there are other things that Mel touched on, like Finder, comparison sites, other books that people like Mel publish. I know a popular one is Barefoot Investor by Scott Pape. So yeah, it's really important to seek out those credible sources. I know it can be hard to identify who they are, but they do exist. So since I put Simon in the hot seat, I'm going to have to do the same with you, Mel.
Okay. I can't do voices, so we're...
That's okay. It seems like a specialized technique that Simon's honed.
Definitely.
But I do know a fun fact about you, that you didn't study maths in year 12. So,
no,
it's very interesting, the trajectory of your career. So how did you first gain an interest in pursuing this, or know that this was the pathway for you if it wasn't something you pursued in high school?
So I actually studied law from school, and I realised, unlike Simon, a few years in, that it just wasn't for me. And my dad was so disappointed, and because he was an accountant, and he said, oh, look, there's some law in accounting. And I remember being so lost as to what I wanted to study at that point. I thought, fine, I'll just do it. I don't know what else to do. And it really was at age 33, I'd accidentally started my business and divorced my first husband, and went, I don't know what I want to do with my life anymore. And I realized that I was actually loved business, and business was the thing that lit me up and got me excited. So fast forward to today, and I've had 2 7-figure businesses, and I'm on my way to a third. But for me, it's all about helping women particularly become financially empowered, because I see far too many women be unempowered financially or have really low financial literacy. And it's about ensuring that they have that incredible financial literacy so that they can make wise decisions.
Yeah, really important. What an amazing career path you've had, and great work that you're doing. And I found it really interesting, those headlines that you showed, and the statistics around how the media portrays particularly women with money and investing. And we're in a really interesting time in terms of that, because recent research shows that in the past 12 months since the pandemic, women made up 45% of all new investors in Australia, including young females. So it's a really fascinating time for women to find this space more accessible, learn more about investing, and try and kind of get ahead in life financially.
And I think women will often not want to risk the house, and they might be a more conservative investor, and that's broad generalization. But certainly the message I was going out last year is saying, hey, it's on sale. Like, the share market's on sale. And if you have that long-term view, then now could be a great time to buy. And I think women got that. You know, it was almost like that shopping predilection that the articles had fed to us for so long. We went, oh, okay, we're going to use that to our advantage and be smart about this. So I've seen the same. I've seen far more women have this incredible appetite for investing, an incredible appetite for getting their financial shit sorted. And I think it's great.
Yeah, really exciting time. And it's great that you can facilitate that for people to, you know, make them feel more supported as, you know, they enter the investing landscape. Okay, so I'm just going to have a quick run through this. There's lots of comments and questions still being put in the chat box. I'm just going to have a quick look, so bear with me. Do the speakers have any podcasts or social media channels where we could follow them and maybe learn more? So yeah, Mel has mentioned her Instagram is More Money for Shoes. Is that right, Mel?
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. Simon, is there content on Morris Blackburn website about super?
Yep. I can forward you, Chanel, some links to some journal articles that I've written.
Great.
Some podcasts that I've done, some TV interviews I've done. So I'll flick those over to you to see.
Amazing. We might, so we'll collate some more resources and links, you know, to share after this session as well. Also, speaking of podcasts, I'm producing one through USASA at the moment, and it's on financial literacy education, 4-part series that we're going to be releasing early next year. So we're tackling topics like debt traps, buy now, pay later, the rise of the finfluencer, and psychology of money. So lots of really compelling stuff that we're going to deliver to all the students and over time. So watch this space. Can you say your podcast name again, please? Mel, your podcast is called something else, isn't it?
Uncensored Money. It's called
Uncensored Money.
Yeah. I did one with Mum and Mia called What the Finance. So that's an 8-series podcast. And then Uncensored Money is the other one.
Oh, you did that one.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah. And you also do lots of interviews on other people's podcasts and platforms as well. So maybe we can collate some of those too, if people want to seek those out. What else? Okay, Uncensored Money, that's been put in the chat box. Thank you for the great presentations. Thank you everyone for being here. Okay. I'll at the end of this session, I'm going to go through the comments a bit more, and I'll contact anyone that wants their question answered. Okay, so as I mentioned, we were going to be giving away some of Mel's books throughout the session for people that participated. So we've made a record of everyone that's participated in the chat box. So I'm going to contact 2 of those participants at the end of this session and let you know you've won the books. And we also have a grand prize pack. So we have a little activity to end the session with that you can take away, reflect on, and submit to us. So that's filling out a spending plan, or what's traditionally called a budget. So have a go at that, submit that to us, and you'll go in the draw to win one of Mel's books. One of my favorite books called Atomic Habits, which is, about behaviors around finance and, you know, really reflecting on the way we act and how we can, you know, make small changes to have remarkable results. So it's a really fantastic book. Also a planning journal and a $160 voucher, which you can choose between a gold class voucher or Holy Moly here in Adelaide. So yeah, we'll contact the people after this session for the winner of the books, and then complete this activity if you want to, and you could win that really great prize pack. So what else do we have next on the slide? A little bit more, if anyone wants to pop in some further questions. Could we put the 160 towards an investment? Not with the voucher, but I'm sure it wouldn't take too long to save up 160 to use. So we've got meal prep can be challenging to cook for one person, especially if you want nutritious food. Do you have any tips on that? I might put together some resources for that since we're going to put together some additional ones. So I'll find some stuff for you on that, Yanhai, and I'll get that to you. Okay, so a self-reflection, what will you take away with you from today? So if you want to pop into the chat box, what is something that you might have learned today? What's something that you want to think more about? What is something you'll reflect on after today's session? Anywhere we can watch this recording or copy of PowerPoint, yes, it'll be uploaded onto the USASA website under the events section. We'll share a link to that as well once that's uploaded. Daniel has said, I think I want to gather more resources on finances and take a leap of faith. That sounds really good. Could you please tell me the name of the account without fees for automated savings? So I'll also organize some links for that too. Save, plan, invest, disposable income, analyze, great. Save to invest. Getting started with investing as I always plan to start. So yeah, if the takeaway today is to just have a start with it, as we've mentioned throughout this session, start small, you know, only start with what you're comfortable with, do your research. I know being students, you know, you're time poor, you don't have a lot of capacity for research. So rely on the resources that we're going to share at the end of this session, Money Smart, and, you know, really be mindful of the financial content you're consuming on social media. Emily has said you don't need to be an expert to start saving, investing. You just need to do some research and make the best choices for you. That's really great insight, Emily. Thank you for sharing that. Getting started with invest. What else have we got? Start now with a small amount. Start small. It's the habits you form that are important, not the amount. That's a really powerful statement, Natalie. Thanks for sharing that. As we've mentioned, habits, behaviors, patterns, cycles is key to understanding how you spend money and your behaviors associated with money. That is key to unlocking your personal finances. So what else do we have? Daniel says, can we learn about taking advantage of services we have or ways we can reduce taxes on our income? So Daniel, given your uni SA student, the uni does have a free tax clinic. So I'll also share the link to that and can share some more tax related links and resources. So I'll follow up on that, Daniel. Okay. So we're going to wrap things up. We're a little bit over time. Kylie says, what does stipend mean? That is a wage or an income you receive through a scholarship. Say if you're doing a PhD, for example. Okay, so join us in our Discord and continue the conversation with your peers that attended. You can network, you can discuss the things you've learned from today, share ideas, share tips, support each other. And yeah, you can use this QR code on the screen to jump into the Discord. And I want to thank our panelists again, Simon and Mel. You delivered such wonderful content and really insightful, important tips. We're really grateful that you could share your time with us today. So it was definitely highly valued. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Well, thank you for joining us. I hope you got a lot out of the session today, and we'll follow up with everyone on prizes and resources and links, and have a great rest of your day.